Hey everyone. Oof, we got a good one today. So I just want to give a shout out to a specific person. About 10 days ago, I put a public post out on my YouTube channel, just, reflecting on my channel and asking viewers, new subscribers, current subscribers, what they would like to see me do in the upcoming year and to finish off 2025. So one of the biggest things that I saw was from Zondicage. So if you're listening to this, thank you very much. And this person suggested that when I'm drawing creatures to explain connection points, which is why I have it written up here. Now, I've done hundreds of videos, okay? I don't think I've ever talked about this, or if I have, it wasn't in the capacity where I'm getting into the nitty-gritty details of how a head actually connects to the neck, how the shoulder connects to the body, how the tail connects to the hip, etc. It's always usually like the full limb or the neck and the head as a whole. Let's start talking about these things because this is a big deal, and I think this is where a lot of beginner creature artists mess up, unknowingly too. And it's okay. Like, we all go there from time to time, and I have to remind myself sometimes of how I'm connecting body parts and such. So what I'm doing here is I'm just scribbling on this little beast head here. I'm just going to put some spikes in. If you're drawing along with me, it would probably be a good idea to just make sure you keep this lesson loose, okay? Or I'm going to keep my lesson loose, showing you. Don't try to get into a lot of details this time. This is more of recognizing small little areas of improvement within the connection points. Okay, so since I drew a head here, I'm going to show you what I like doing, connecting the head to the neck. Here's a huge problem that beginner artists have. When they get to the back of the head, now it does depend on the species, okay? It's like a lizard, obviously. But there are some species on the planet where there could be a skinny neck and a fat body, huge head, small neck, etc. But I'm going to show you how to connect it. And the back of the head here where the cranium is, you have to imagine what that skull looks like inside. This is why it's so vital to learn how to draw the skeletal system before you actually draw the skin and everything. And just to make this fun, why don't we put some shading on this head, because we can. Alright, so let's just make these little doodles a little bit more real than originally planned, but I'm going to hold myself to what I said in the beginning. Keep it loose. Okay, in the back, what does the skin look like? Up the neck as it's touching the head. What's happening right in there? There's like an ear hole right there. I'll show you what I would do. The back of the head would stay rather thick, okay, because I have to think about the spinal column. Now the spinal column for this particular critter is not connecting at the very top of the head. It's actually inside right here in the back, but there's going to be a backbone above it. Okay, so there's going to be a little dip where the cranium is, and then I just immediately start on the neck. So look at this point right here, everybody. It's not the letter V, it's just like an arrow here. That you want to avoid being too deep of a crevice. Otherwise, it's not going to look right under here. You're going to have two conflicting shapes, because if you do it under here, it's just going to look like somebody tied a rubber band around its neck. Like it's not going to look good. So you want to make sure that this stays believable in this spot. Think about the underlying skull and the bones. Okay, so let's say inside, okay, we have like the back of the skull here. Okay, and then we have the vertebrae. Okay, so if we have the vertebrae, okay, we start drawing the vertebrae. This is why it's really important to draw bones. I've been drawing a lot of bones over the years, and when you commit this, maybe like a daily practice or every other day, you're going to start memorizing some of the hardest bones to draw, and it really does pay off. But look at what I'm doing. Okay, the vertebrae only go so far on the top. You have to imagine muscle sitting right on top of that spinal column, plus the skin. You got the skin layers, you have the blood, you have a layer of fat, and then you have the outline of the neck. Okay, so think about that connection point back there. You want to make sure it's strong. So let me go into detail about what to avoid. Let's say you do a head. If you're drawing along with me, just draw this exact same thing, and then I want you all to recognize it for yourselves that something is off. So let's say we have just a shorter head right here for a creature. Put the eye, just like a random eye or whatever. Okay, and let's say you do this. Okay, it just looks like a goofy chameleon or something. Something doesn't feel right, and it's not just with reptilian creatures. It's usually with everything. When you draw this, just make sure that if you're intending for this to be kind of like a goofy horror look, my kids absolutely love watching the, like Huggy Wuggy and different really scary critters like that. You can get away with altering the body connection points, but it works because like the style that you're drawing, and depending on how scary you want the creature, how weird you want it, it can work. But I'm just telling you guys this in case you're wondering why something feels off. So make sure that when you're connecting the head to the neck, that the neck, see the thickness right here? You want to make sure that the muscles inside that neck are strong enough to hold up the head connected to the end. There's a play on proportions. Okay, so you have the head right here, and then you have part two. Okay, you want to make sure that these are looking good together. Okay, so head and neck. And there's tons of other combos. I mean, we're talking aquatic creatures, birds, super alien creatures where the head doesn't even resemble anything on Earth. Okay, we'll get into that in a little bit also. So if you're suffering from feeling like this when you draw, let me know in the comments, because I'm sure most of you have been here before. Okay, I've been here before. I know. It's frustrating. It's super, super frustrating. And then we try to make excuses for why we're not doing it correctly. Okay, it just takes practice and it takes repetition. All right, let's move on. Okay, another connection point. You guys ready? So we're going to connect the shoulder. Okay, let's just label these. Okay. Head to neck. Also, write this stuff down too. Be surprised at what you can remember when you physically write stuff down. All right, let's go on to the second connection. Okay, and then we're going to do shoulder to body. This is a big one, because what happens is the shoulder to body, the same thing can be said about the hind legs, like to the hip. So I'll show you what happens. Let's say that you have a neck coming down, like a weird one, something huge. Okay, this isn't even, it's not a mammal. Like, I don't even know what this is. Okay, it's just an odd creature with an arm coming down. Okay, so let's say the head is over here to the side, somewhere off to our left. This is the chest. Okay, this is the deltoid right here. So I'm just going to put in a, well, actually I won't put in a sphere because I want to tell you a mistake that people make at the top. Okay, so let's say you're putting in your deltoid. Let's say you're making up something totally crazy. Maybe that is a tricep. There's some wrinkles in the back here. Maybe the bicep is stretched out. Maybe it's kind of like an aquatic creature, but not quite. There's the chest. Right on the top of the shoulder, I noticed this. So people will take the shoulder and they'll round off the top like this. It happens a lot when we do quadrupeds. Okay, so let's say we have the elbow coming down like this. Okay, and then we have the hoof coming out like this. Right, like that. Okay. Okay, so we have something like this, and then there's the body, the scapula, just to let you know what I'm drawing. Okay, like the scapula's right here. I'm not going to be getting into too much detail. And then people will round off the top of the arm. So if you look at how the top of deltoids attach to the body in that spot, it's better to actually follow the deltoid up and split the markings. Split your drawing to the left and then explode it to the left or right. So let me go into more detail about that. So when you look back here, if I were to go up and over, I would almost be creating like a chicken leg. Okay, it was almost like you buy a toy and you can take the toy out, like the leg joint, and then you'll see this in the opening. There's the hole where the little tab went for the leg. You don't want that. You don't want the top of the shoulder to follow that roundness. Instead, you splay it outwards like this. Why are we going out just a little bit? It's because the skin is growing past the deltoid muscle and attaching to the torso. This connection point right here, it's very subtle, everybody. You can go on something totally alien like this. Okay, it doesn't matter. Okay, say you're not looking at anything on Earth. You're just making it up. Okay, right here, I'm going to spread it outward just a little bit. And by doing that, it's creating bulk on top of that deltoid region. Because I can end those pencil strokes pretty lightly. And then if I want to shade out here, so let's say I'm just going to add in some shading, just a little bit. Okay, let's make it a little bit more realistic. Just put a pass number 2 right here. Okay, so right under here is the armpit. This is the chest, so let's call this out. Okay, so this is the chest. All right, this is the deltoid region. Look at how, as I'm coming up the front head of the deltoid, the skin and the wrinkles are being stretched outward to connect to the neck. Remember the thickness of this neck, it's coming down the body and it's going to meet that deltoid region. So you don't want this big ball right here. Instead, so here, I'm actually going to use my eraser for this so I can show you exactly what I mean. I'm going to take that out. Okay, and then if I want to put in some indication of rounded muscle, I'm just going to add some values right there. I'm going to shade it in. I'm not going to outline it. And then I'm going to connect it to the neck. So this is a very good method if you're finding yourself not meaning to draw like it's a toy. If you're making it look rather stiff and frumpy, this is going to help you prevent it. I always love doing wrinkles and small little parts where it looks like the body has to hinge together. Okay, so it can show age, it can show motion. You know, a lot of times scales have to get really tiny in areas where the skin has to bend anyway. And then when you get up the deltoid region, like up here where it's a bigger area, bigger surface area, the scales can get bigger. That's a fun little trick. Okay, so once you start coupling these techniques together, you'd be surprised at what you can accomplish. It's a lot of fun. Okay, so let's finish this arm off. Maybe this is like a really stretched out brachialis muscle. Like this. Don't want to get too carried away, but I'll put some shading right underneath the tricep. Okay, and then a little hint. That's such a strange arm, isn't it? Very strange. That's why I love creature design. Anything goes, really. All right. Okay, so that's how I would connect that whole shoulder joint to the body. Okay, imagine that the thickness of like the fat and the skin and everything up here is flowing directly into the shoulder. And if you want to show the bulkiness of it, like if it's a very ripped shoulder, a very strong one, take your pencil and almost completely to the side, give it a nice little shadowed outline. And that's the connection point. That's all you need. All right, so let's move on. Hopefully you are enjoying this. If you want to go even more in depth, I do have a Patreon where I go, talk about my client work. I do live streams and I give you fun little assignments that I do not give here on my YouTube channel. So if you want to dive into how I collect reference, find out, how I work for clients and what they ask and everything, I invite you to my Patreon. Check the links in the description below for that one. All right, let's move on to another one. Every motion that your creature makes is going to pass through this area and through the hip. Okay, it's a very big dictator of how your creatures are going to live and move. So you want to show overlapping forms, trapezius-like structures, maybe the indication of a clavicle, exoskeletal plates for variety, something that shows it connecting to other body parts. So for example, let's look at this neck. Let's say we're just going to travel down this neck. Okay, and we're making our way all the way down here, and voila, we get right here. Now, big bulging places could be like the trap up here, or traps. Okay, you got the creature's version of the sternocleidomastoid, whatever other muscles in there, because it's alien, it's not even on Earth. We don't have a name for these muscles. So we want to show like how they would connect. Well, we don't need to show the outline of all of the muscles matter-of-factly. Okay, it's kind of like drawing a creature always ripped. Okay, then creatures aren't always going to be like that. Now, maybe you want to. Maybe you want to show a creature that is totally ripped all the time like a bodybuilder. That's fine. But when you want to connect these areas, think of the subtle changes that you can make. What if there are scales going down one of the neck muscles, but it has to connect down here to a place that doesn't have any scales? Ooh, that's a big challenge. And I will admit, I have to think twice, maybe 3, 4, 5 times before I even commit to an area like that. And a lot of times, I've been doing this a long time, I still don't know. I hope for the best, because it's weird. It's a weird area, and I do screw up. So I have to be careful about, like how I want the scales and how I want this connection to work. So I look back at the structure, okay? Deltoid muscle. I didn't outline it completely. We got the thickness of the neck meeting the muscle. There's the pinching point. So I'm just going to add subtle shading right in here where the crease would be. All right, now, if I'm looking at the shoulder, I would imagine that, okay, the deltoid is connected to the clavicle somewhere in this area, but it's not really defined. It's just I know that it's in this general vicinity. We got the thickness of this neck coming down, big muscles, all of that jazz. Okay, so maybe the wrinkles can still sit across that connection point. Not a ton of wrinkles, I just did 4, maybe 5 over here. Okay, and then maybe the muscle can bend a little bit, and I'm gonna stop. This is the discipline. Not all the time do we have to show perfect connections. The only time that that would ever really need to happen is if you had an exoskeleton shape and there had to be a split in the shell to show articulation. It's kind of like, there's the end of the shell. We know a turtle head's going to poke out underneath the shell. We can differentiate the two. One is hard surface, one is organic. So maybe something can be said about this connection area. Maybe we can draw a shell on the top where the traps are going to be, like this, and then all of a sudden under here is free game. Okay, maybe there's some skin. Okay, maybe there's some kind of really cool hard scale on the bottom of the neck. Now we're narrowing it in. I haven't touched this area yet. I don't really want to. I'm kind of freaked out about it because I think I'm going to screw it up. So I need to think about it. Big deltoid right here. The side and the front of the deltoid muscles will attach to that clavicle. The traps are up here. Okay, maybe we can't see the clavicle at all. It's just wrinkles from the shoulder going straight up into the neck. And then that's my connection point. It's a free-flowing line going from the shoulders all the way up into the neck. It's connecting it, it's flowing. I'm done with it. I don't want to screw it up, and I'm not even going to look at it anymore. I'm going to move on. Okay, but well, maybe I will look at it because I want to show you some opportunities that you can have here. See this long muscle right there? Maybe the deltoid goes straight up into that. I created like a 2 or 3 step system. We got one here, and then the area down there. And maybe this can get some shadows because it's the underbelly of the neck. You can see how this connection is working, starting to look more real. So, since the shoulder is an incredibly complex area with tons of different, I mean, you got your rib cage, you got your humerus bone in here, and then you have the neck, and then you have the back. All of these areas join right here. There's so much emotion and motion that would happen in here, depending on how much detail you want to get. Okay. We talked about limbs to body. Another thing that I want to just point out is like when we do like a quadruped, this is just a standard, you know, like elk, deer, moose, caribou, whatever you want to call it. Creatures are going to look different depending on how alien it is. You want to avoid starting with that toy shoulder and then just doing this. I know some of you are going to be guilty of doing this. You do the leg and you just go straight down. And then there's the foot, like this. Kind of looks straight up like a toy, okay? If you want to draw a toy, cool. But you want to avoid that. And just a little nugget of information, the front legs should not get a heel. That's for the back legs, okay? But anyway, let's move on to one of my favorite areas. It's the tail. You guys ready for this? Let's talk about this tail. Because the tail is vital. It's easy to screw up, but it's also a lot of fun to invent some really wild stuff back here. So when we think about the tail, let's just have a make-believe hip region. Okay, I don't know what this is. Maybe that's the hip. Okay, maybe the thigh is over here. So we got this bottom right here. The way the tail will grow out of this is infinite. We think of lions, okay? We think of large cats. Heck, look how skinny the tail is on an elephant, but how bulky the actual rest of the body is. Okay, there's so many cool things that we can do. But one thing is clear. No matter how skinny the tail is to whatever animal you're thinking of or creature you're making up, there's always strength at the attachment point. Let's look at it from the back, okay? If a tail comes up, all right, it doesn't have to be like super thick right there as connection point, but you want to go out just a little bit. Because you have to remember, the tail is growing from the hip, from the inside of the hip, not on top of the hip. So we don't want to place these body parts on top of them. It's coming from it, which means that as this creature grew, whatever you're making up, the bone structure had to grow out of the spine, out of the, I guess you can call it the coccyx region, and the skin had to follow suit. Okay, so if we have these crazy hips in the back, no matter how skinny or how big the body is, okay, the skin had to travel and grow with that tail being in the inside of, you know, the anatomy. So you want to make sure that you splay that out just a little bit. And this right here, this may be all you need to do. Now, if it's side view, here's where it can get kind of tricky. All right, so let's say we come up here to the hip of our fellow semi-made up quadruped. Let's say it's really skinny, like this, okay? And then all of a sudden you get fatter and fatter and fatter. Cool. Maybe it's like hair or some kind of weird material. Maybe it's totally alien and they're stingers like jellyfish. Who knows? Up here is important, that little spot. So instead of having like the back of the hip and the tail just poking out like it's growing from top of it, you could do something like this. Here's the hip. Okay, think about the shape of this. You want each body part, each connection point, to look like it belongs to the part it's connected to. No, neck to torso, head to neck, limbs to body. Okay, think about the tail cascading from the top of the hip. Okay, and right down here, where the bottom is, maybe instead of having a line come straight out, maybe it comes from underneath and then it meets it. Just that little arc. shows that there's skin connecting to the under part of that hip. Now it looks like it's a part of whatever this was. I know this is getting very picky and very detailed, but I feel that this kind of stuff is not talked about often. It has to be achieved in almost like a trial and error type scenario. And while that is fun, you want to discover new things and everything, hopefully these little nuggets of information will, not bypass stuff that's wrong, but kind of jumpstart it, light a fire under you to fix these things. Because really, I can look at this tail and be like, well, I'm just going to put some shading in here, right like this. And maybe there's some like fur at the top. Okay, and if there's fur at the top, we won't see any of those thick lines up there. And all of a sudden, the tail looks like it belongs to that hip instead of placing it with it. All right, so I could go into this kind of stuff for hours, but I think I'm going to compartmentalize all of these lessons. If you want to dive even deeper, this coming week and in the next several weeks on my Patreon, I'm holding polls so you can vote on what creature you want me to dissect and build from scratch. And I'm going to show you how I collect reference. I'm going to show you how I would take the reference, do my thumbnails, think about anatomy, all of that stuff. All right, so check the links in the description below for that. I run a mentorship, and I also invite you to join our Creature Design Workshop Discord. So hopefully you like this lesson. We start talking about the head to the neck, shoulder area, which is, crazy connection point. And then the hip region. So I want to end on that. All right, so let's do something pretty wild here. Let's just have like this really crazy looking back leg. Okay, something off the wall and multiple joints, multiple knee joints. Maybe there's big claw right here, secondary claw. Maybe it's kind of like a velociraptor where there's like a hook right there. The knee dips down, but it's a very flat thigh. Okay. Now, if I were to draw the top of the back, there's a protruding hip bone, and then I have this crazy tail. Let's just take a look at what I'm doing here. Okay. I'm keeping everything in frame, so that's why it's kind of zoomed in. How would we connect this? So, just like the shoulder area, connecting to the torso, the hip and all of the leg connecting to the hip, and then the rest of the torso. It's one of the most expressive body areas for any animal because so many things need to happen in that area. Bodies need to turn, bodies need to rest, bodies need to catch their weight, etc. So, top of the thigh right here. I like to add a little bit of stretched skin that will connect to that, the oblique section. Okay, so you got your obliques under there. And you can have your back spine right here. There's the belly. Okay, there's like a belly. I want to make sure that this dips low enough so that it gives the illusion that there is actually intestines inside our creature right here. Okay, and the other leg, that would be in the background, so we're not really paying attention to that. But stretching the skin out. All right, this region, this is why it's good to study hips. Study them on big cats, dogs. You got lizards, okay, birds. Study the hip joints. All right, now how will we connect that to there? It's actually not as hard as you think. I like to stretch some of that skin out. Maybe your creature doesn't have any skin there. Maybe there's like a lot more body weight right in there. That's okay. But just don't outline everything to the point where it looks like a toy and you're placing it on top of that, because you don't want that look of, hey, there's where the plastic knob needs to fit into the hole. There's the surface area where the hip needs to be, covering, and then that's how you connect it. So like at the top of the bone, the crest, I'm going to go down a little bit, I'm going to flatten it out, and I'm going to join it right in with the back. Just have that nice little subtle decline, and then it inclines into a new hill. That's what I like. And that's what usually looks good. But again, depends on the creature that you have. Just going to shade a little bit up here. All right, and there we have it. Now that's a very quick tutorial for the hip region, because you do want to show off some of that, but you don't want to outline everything too much. Okay, think about subtle wrinkles that you could bring up into the rest of the back to show that, hey, it's the same skin, everybody, on the same creature. It's just connecting two different points. So take your pencil to the side, and if your hip region on your creature that you're making protrudes a lot, use your pencil to shade in the bone sticking out instead of taking your pencil and outlining it deeply. All right, so you want to get into the habit of subtleties here, building up those areas. All right, so hopefully you guys like today's lesson. I'm going to be getting into a lot more of this on my channel too. It's always a pleasure to read your comments and just to see what you guys are struggling with, your triumphs. And thanks again. This entire channel, I owe everything to you guys. So hopefully you're getting something out of it. Till next time, peace.